Hi, my name is Patrick Ness. I am the author of the novel Monster Calls, as well as the screenplay of the movie that you are just about to watch. And hopefully you've seen before, because I don't know why you'd start watching with the audio commentary first, because I'm just going to talk all over it, and that's probably the most annoying thing that could happen. So go back and watch it, and then come back and listen to me chatter on about A Monster Calls. Here we go. We start with a nightmare, like all good stories do. So that's our Connor. That's Connor, played by Lewis MacDougall, who I'll talk about in a bit. Just a word on the material. The material comes from an unusual place, particularly for a novelist, in that it comes from another novelist, a novelist called Siobhan Dowd, who was a fantastic writer of books for young adults. And you should look up her work. You're in for a treat. But she wrote 4 novels, and she wrote all of them knowing that she had terminal breast cancer. And so she wrote as quickly as she could. And A Monster Calls, under a slightly different name, was meant to be her 5th novel, and she fully expected to be able to write it, but sadly she died before she expected to, and before she had a chance to really do much work on it. And when she died, we shared an editor at our publishers called Walker Books in the United Kingdom, and our editor brought the book to me, brought what Siobhan had, her material, to me, and said, would you consider turning this into a book? So the editor we shared at Walker Books, Denise Johnstone-Burt, she brought me the materials that Siobhan had written, which weren't much, which was a first chapter of about 1,000 words, but really first chapter, so just, trying things out, and a structural idea about stories being told, which I really thought was really, really wonderful. And but my first reaction to being asked if I would turn this into a novel, because our editor did not want the idea to disappear, my first reaction was actually no, because I worry that a good story doesn't get written that way. It has to be a story first. It has to be something you're responding to, on an emotional level, with your gut, really. You can't write a tribute. You can't write a memorial, because that's not a story. And moreover, that's not what Siobhan Dowd would have written. She was a very, very clever, mischievous, smart writer. And she would never have written something so staid as a memorial. And so I was going to say no, but then the unexpected happened, which is what all writers want when they get an idea, is that it started sprouting other ideas. And I had looked at her materials, and I got an idea, almost involuntarily, truly, of what you'll see coming up at the end of the second tale, when Connor comes out of it and discovers he's destroyed his grandmother's sitting room. And I thought, that's it. That's the fulcrum of the book. That is everything I want to tell in the story about this boy whose mother is ill, and he has no real way to express, what's going on in his head about that. It has all the repressed anger. It has the transgression of the action. It's a real break of a taboo, and it's everything I wanted, everything that I felt the story could contain. And so that's how I knew that I could write it. Because the worst possible thing that could happen in that situation is you write a bad book for all the wrong reasons. You're trying to be too careful or too reverential, which are not at all the things that Siobhan Dowd would have done. But I knew that I wanted to do it when I got this idea. And I said, I need to let it grow just like Siobhan Dowd would have let it grow, and see where it runs. And in the introduction to the book, I describe it as like a relay race. She handed me a baton, and I ran with it. And and I concentrated on not trying to write a story that she would have written, because who could say, but to write one that she would have loved, which felt like we were in it together. It felt like like mischief making. So that's where the book came from, and it originally started out to be maybe a small book, maybe something little between bigger books of mine and indeed hers. But it revealed itself to have some power to it, and that was a really unexpected pleasure.
The base of the natural logarithm system, it's a number. It's a number that emerges from asking, what is the mathematical function or thing which describes things where the rate which they change is proportional to their magnitude? Now, if you do that mathematically, it'll give you this fundamental constant. Connor?
You're right there, Connor. You look tired.
And here is kind of the crux of how adults often look at kids who are in this same situation. That's the thing, that one of the main principles of the book is how much kids know, because they know way more than we allow them to know, if you know what I mean. A clever kid like Connor here is going to figure out 95% of what's going on, and he's going to fill in the other 5% with plausible information, and it's that 5% that is, that's destructive and poisonous if you get it wrong. And so when a teacher talks to you like that, when it says, you look tired, are you taking care of yourself? These aren't quite the right questions, I don't think. I think we need to allow the fact that the kids we know a lot more than we give them credit for, and give them a space to just be honest about it, which is all Connor's kind of desperate for, without getting too psychoanalytical, because it has to be a story first.
Remember, O'Malley, good boys don't talk.
So, a book comes out, and if you're lucky, then, movie studios get interested in it, and that's all very nice. It's all very, it's flattering and enjoyable. But I lived in Los Angeles for 10 years after college, and so I would constantly be meeting waiters who had, Brad Pitt attached to their screenplay. So I always took it with a grain of salt. I always said, I still say to this day, that I'll believe a movie is going to happen when I can buy a ticket and go to the cinema to watch it. So people showed interest in the book, which was really wonderful and really great. But even in the early meetings, and this is not a story about Hollywood being stupid, because I don't actually believe that. I think Hollywood really is filled with people who are trying to make good stuff. It's just really, really, really hard. So definitely not everybody, but a few people in those early meetings about the book, about turning it into a film, were already coming up with suggestions of how it might be changed, and how it might be, softened or made easier. And I was against that from the very, very start. And I thought, if the book works, I feel like I know why it works. And actually, I just want to stop here for a sec, because this scene where they watch King Kong. So, maybe in the entire world, there are maybe 60 kids who watch silent black and white films when they're children, but all 60 of them grow up to be film directors, and Bayona's one of them. So that's why this is in the movie. So God love him. I think this is really lovable. I think this is actually a peak of Bayona's childhood. He asked for this scene, so I was very happy to add it. But anyway, so movie interest in the book, but I had some really grave concerns about things being softened or made easier, because I thought that would be a lie. And everything I wanted about the story was finding the truth of what Connor would actually feel, not what other kids have felt in stories like this, not in. We've all seen similar stories like this, and I didn't want to just repeat what I'd seen before, but I wanted to find out what would actually happen, what would really be true, to get past what's easy. Because anything easy for him would be false, and that would be the worst outcome, and it would just, be a lie to our hero here. So I wrote the screenplay on spec, which is just where you write it without any studio or filmmaker attached. I just thought, let me at least start the conversation. I'm not a filmmaker, so, I would want someone to bring all the amazing stuff that Bayona has to this film, but I would like to at least start the conversation and say, these are the things that I hold important in the book. These are the things that I feel are the most valuable things that are key to the story. And, and fingers crossed, hopefully a filmmaker will respond. And that's a big risk. It didn't have to work. I could have fallen on my face quite big, and I wouldn't be here talking to you, lovely people. All 6 of you who listen to the screenplay writers track. But I did get lucky, and I did have a couple filmmakers respond, but Bayona was the one who was clearly the right guy. And this scene is actually a perfect example of why. Because in his earlier films, The Orphanage and The Impossible, I believe what Bayona and I have in common in our material, the stuff that we worked on, are 2 key things. One of which is the importance and the seriousness with which a child's point of view is treated. Connor isn't looked down on in this story, and nor in the film. What he feels and what he's reacting to and reacting against and struggling with and against are primary. They are the things that drive the story, and they are worth looking at. They aren't less valuable just because he's young. And that belief in the seriousness of a child's point of view is something that Bayona and I share. And the other, again perfect for this scene, is a real belief in the bleeding of genres. I have a theory that there's no such thing as a realistic story. I think all stories, even ones set in, in contemporary England, like this one is, they're all fantasy, because they're all made-up characters arcing towards their destinies, coincidences. Every story is a fabrication. And if you can acknowledge that, then the bleed between genres is easier to do and will flow better in a story. And this is a story that mixes heavy fantasy elements into putatively realistic ones. And so a filmmaker who, as with horror elements in The Orphanage or thriller elements in The Impossible, a filmmaker who is willing to let that all flow together is exactly what we needed. See what I mean? The willingness to really embrace a horror element when you need it can heighten an emotional thing. It doesn't have to be separate. They really can augment and enhance each other. I mean, look at that. That's awesome. Look at that. And there's a shot in a puddle coming up that is just pure cinema. This one. What a great shot this is. Yeah. We took a long time in post, and I have this theory that, how the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, in 1993, those dinosaurs, CGI dinosaurs, still look amazing, and everything since has looked a little bit crappy, you know what I mean? Everything since has looked a little weightless and light, and I truly believe that is just the time spent rendering and shading and making it, more and more subtle. And so we had quite a long post on this on purpose to make the monster feel absolutely real, absolutely like he's genuinely standing outside a house and has weight and presence. And boy, I think they did a great job.
I have come to get you, Conor O'Malley.
This shot is based on the very first illustration that was done for the book. The book has illustrations by a great illustrator called Jim Kay, who had never done a book before, never illustrated a full book before, but we sent him the manuscript and asked him to do a test, and the first test he did was the monster leaning against the house exactly like that. And it was so good we used it in the book, and I'm very, very glad it's in the film as well. That whole setup.
I will visit you again on further nights, Conor O'Malley, and I will shake your walls until you wake. And then I will tell you 3 stories.
You're going to tell me stories?
Yeah, no, I like a story that pivots, that surprises you with where it's going to go, which is what the monster does, which is the whole point of the stories he tells. That stories are slippery, and they may contain different truths than you might think on first glance, depending on who's telling them.
You will tell me your nightmare. No. Yes, that will be your truth.
And if I don't?
And then the monster obviously is voiced by the amazing Liam Neeson. You almost think, when talking about the book and talking about the screenplay, you almost think, is it going to be too obvious? Is that what everybody's going to expect? I mean, I don't think so, but you'd expect him for a reason. And I really genuinely believe that there is a difference between kind and nice. Kind is way better than nice, and you can be very, very nice without being at all kind, and I think that is an interesting villain. That's a very, very evil person, someone who smiles at you, but without kindness. But the reverse of that is also very, very interesting and I think very compelling. that you can be kind without being at all nice. And in a sense, that's what the monster is. The monster isn't even remotely nice. He doesn't care that he gets Conor in trouble. He doesn't care that there is extensive destruction caused by his encouragement. But at a crucial moment, he is kind. And that's isn't that exactly what you think of as Liam Neeson? All of this power, all of this incredible majesty and real force in that voice of his. But you believe it when it's kind. And I always, personally, I can face difficulty. I can face something hard or tragic or painful. In a way, I can do that more easily than I can face unexpected kindness. I always get knocked out at the knees by unexpected kindness. And so Liam Neeson is perfect for that. And it's not just his voice. He's entirely motion captured. The whole performance of the tree, every movement the tree makes, is motion captured and is actually Liam Neeson moving and, giving the creature presence. And that adds so much that you would never sort of consciously notice, but it makes a huge difference. And in fact, it's the very first thing we filmed. The first 2 weeks of filming were all in a motion capture studio out in the middle of Oxfordshire. And that actually was, that was an amazing... I sat there, and the first thing we filmed on motion capture was the second tale, which is coming up. And so the first AD is there on the floor talking to Liam Neeson, who's dressed in a motion capture suit, which is like a scuba diving suit with lots of little rubber nipples all over, and Lewis MacDougall, this young actor, also there, also in a motion capture suit, and they are enacting the second tale. And the first assistant director is saying, here's the Parson's house, here's where you're going to stand about the Parson's house, here's how you're going to take action against the Parson's house, here's the branch you'll pick up. And I just sat there in the dark, listening to this happen, thinking, I made this up. This is in my head. I made this up. And for any writer, that's an extraordinary thing to see it come to life. Even in a motion capture studio, that is extraordinary.
I take mine black.
What do you think, Con?
He loves it. Go on.
Okay.
Go on, try something else.
And that's Sigourney Weaver as the grandmother, obviously, and Felicity Jones as Conor's mum. And they're lovely together. They're just, Felicity and Sigourney are lovely together. But a foot difference in height, but you can still believe them as mother and daughter. Sigourney cast for a specific reason, one that we really valued in the character, we really valued in her as an actress, and that she's, unlike a lot of actresses you might think of, she has a very specific persona, which is slightly different than normal. You think of Sigourney Weaver and you instantly think of strength. You instantly think of Ripley, you instantly think of Avatar, you instantly think of her presence and power on screen. And so when she walks on screen, you kind of think how she's going to be. You think you know what kind of performance she's going to give or what her character's going to be like. You think you know that, and that's persona. And so we thought, who better to come on with this incredible persona, which we can then chip away at for the rest of the film and in a sense, watch her crumble. And the real lack of vanity for Sigourney in this, the real willingness to, well, not just, a few moments of unpleasantness to a young boy, but also really opening up to this is a woman who's losing her daughter, and she allows us to see that in the panic here, which I think is really moving, but also in the later scenes where she's just desperately trying to hold it together. And Sigourney is excellent at that, just perfect.
It's coming.
Here you go. Here you go.
Deep breath.
And Felicity, we cast actually before she exploded. The whole world knows her now. But we got her before Theory of Everything even came out, before she got the Oscar nomination. In fact, she found out about the Oscar nomination on set, which is real nice. The director, Bayona, had seen her in Like Crazy, a comedy she made with the late Anton Yelchin, and just really liked her and liked, she's young, and the point of this is that she's a young mother to Conor, and she had him when she was quite young. But there's still this kind of seriousness about her that isn't at all frivolous or ostentatiously young. People would say old soul, and I've never liked that phrase, but you can kind of see what they're talking about with Felicity. And as for this guy, my God, this is Lewis MacDougall. And first of all, be amazed at how he carries the film. Be amazed at the things he does. But be further amazed because he's actually doing this at actually 12 years old and in an accent. He's from Edinburgh, he's Scottish. He's doing this not in his original accent. That's how extraordinary he is. You write a script and you think, well, I got to make some accommodations here. I've got to make some compromises on what we can do in a film, because in a book you can imagine anything, but in a film, obviously, there are some limitations. And so I did two things where I thought, well, you know what, ask for the moon. Because you may not get the moon, but you might get something interesting on the way to the moon, I always think. So always shoot the moon. And the first was asking about the visuals of the tales, which I'll talk about. But the other was I knew I was asking a nearly impossible task by putting all of the weight of this film on Conor's shoulders. I mean, he's in every scene. He is, he's our surrogate. He's the one who we follow. He is going through an extremely difficult time, has to deal with huge emotions that would, floor an adult. And he's got to be an actual kid. And he's got to do it without precocity, that sort of horrible Hollywood, sparkle, Shirley, sparkle, precocity. So I thought, well, why not ask the world? Why not ask? Well, let's just assume that we can find a little Olivier, and I'll just ask the world. And better to ask too much and have to reel back than to not ask enough and never get. And then we found Lewis. We did that big process that people always talk about in casting actors. We did look at 1,000 people. But Lewis just kept rising and rising and rising. And we've eventually brought a bunch of the younger actors over to Spain, did a bunch of workshops based on the script just to see how they would react with each other and how they would react to the material, how they would handle it. And Lewis is the one you just kept watching it. He does something that adult actors find difficult. He does stillness extremely well. He knows when to be quiet. He knows when to go big, when you have to, but he also knows many, many young actors can do sadness and crying, but not many can do anger, and he could do both. And he can also be funny, and he's just an absolute natural. And he'd only done one thing before this. He was in the movie Pan, but that's how good he is. We were able to just lift him right into this, and he carries it. It's an amazing thing. I hope he has a huge career in front of him.
Topple your enemies, slay your dragons.
Or at least help me with my grandmother. But all you want to do is tell me stories.
Stories of how I topple my enemies. Stories of I slew dragons. Let me tell you a tale of when I came walking. Let me tell you of the end of a wicked queen and how I made sure she was never seen again.
That sniff in that face is entirely Liam. That's exactly what he did when he was acting it.
Good.
That's the importance of motion capture. That's a good shot. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah, I made this crap up. Yes, I did, people. I did.
What do you see?
Nothing. There are leaves in the way.
Use your imagination, Conor O'Malley. What do you see?
There's the first tale.
Yes. And
No, it's water.
And this is where collaboration is a thrill. I mean, I could tell the story. I could put the words together.
oh, indeed. Long ago, before this was a town with roads and trains and cars, this was a kingdom.
Here, we don't even have a Tesco.
Tesco is a supermarket in the United Kingdom. We argued about that line for years, pretty much, since from the beginning. I kept saying it should be something like Starbucks. It should be something that the entire world recognizes. Tesco is just a local supermarket. But perversely, they just kept insisting on Tesco, so Tesco it is.
To dragons.
But anyway, the tales, I mean, I had some ideas on the prose shape of the tales and how they should be structured and, the point of them. Because the point of them is about Conor is telling himself the wrong story, and these tales need to show him that there is no one way to tell a story. That there are always a different point of view, and there's always someone else would make themselves the hero of the story. So I could write that out, and I could say what I wanted to do with the story, and I could, I really, really loved being able to, invent a new fairy tale and invent one with prongs and prickles and unexpected endings and a restiveness that felt really right to me. But to make them this visually stunning, that's where collaboration, like I say, is thrilling. I could never have thought of this in a million years. I mean, even simple things like the transitions we've just had, where the dragon blows the fire, or the horse, he ages on top of the horse, and we cut over to this wedding. That kind of stuff I would never have thought of. And look how beautiful it is. It's about an animation house in Spain. Yeah,
felt ill,
I just love this.
rumor began to spread that she was an
And
evil.
there's a great shot coming up where a spider turns into her fingernails clacking, and yeah, that's real joy for a writer. Where it's like the illustrations in the book, where somebody really, really talented and stuff that I just can never do brings something to the material, and together our individual contributions add up to something larger than both of us put together, and that's the real joy.
By law, the queen would rule for another year.
I know that's not usual laws of the kingdom, but you know it's my fairy tale, and that's what I'm saying. He had to be 18 to be king, and that's just that. Just accept it.
The prince, meanwhile, had given away his heart.
Bayona says something interesting about the way he describes reality, which I agree with.
Farmer's daughter,
He describes reality as neutral. Reality simply is. And there's the spider shot. Clack. Fingernails. Love it.
however, she was rather enjoying.
In order to understand reality, in order to find truth in reality, we have to tell stories about it. And that's how reality doesn't have intrinsic truth. We have to figure it out. We have to, again, apply a story to it to find truth within it. And I believe that. And I think that's how we exist as biological creatures. I tend to think that, well, that sentience, I think, was an evolutionary accident. It benefited us hugely, but I don't think we were quite ready for it. Because we face this chaotic and massive, possibly meaningless universe. And how do we reckon with it? How do we reckon with our mortality? And how do we reckon with love within it?
Branches of a yew tree.
And we do that by stories, by telling stories about it, and making a ground that is safe to walk on, so we can properly experience a dangerous reality.
My beloved, he
And
said.
so that's what the monster's doing here. He's telling a story that seems 100% obvious. Good guys, bad guys, no problem.
which
And that's
was
what he's setting up here.
noticed.
But there's more to it than that.
Someone
Stories are powerful,
in the night.
and they aid us constantly. They let us live, but they can trap us too.
Queen has murdered.
And so this is about letting a story be wild, don't letting it be settled.
Vengeance rose up at the crime. It was then that I came.
And then this shot, look at this shot. Man, look at that. That is worth the price of admission alone, frankly. So, simple fairy tale. Prince good, witch bad. The end.
Good. He deserved it.
Except,
Now, I don't suppose you can help me with my grandma.
The story is not yet finished. I took the queen and carried her far enough away so the townspeople would never find her. To a village by the sea where she began a new life.
But she killed the farmer's daughter. How can you save a murderer? You really are a monster.
I never said she killed the farmer's daughter. I only said that the prince said it was so.
yes, always pay attention to the facts of your story, of exactly what's being said and exactly what's not being said. What people leave out is just as important.
To be lost in her dreams. And then began his real plan.
What?
Ah, the bastard.
Death could start a fire that would consume the queen entire.
Accidental rhyme there.
That's a terrible story and a cheat.
It's a true story. Many things that are true feel like a cheat.
Isn't that the truth?
Victims get the princes they deserve. Farmers' daughters die for no reason. And sometimes witches merit saving. Quite often, actually. You'd be surprised.
So, the good prince is a murderer, and the evil queen wasn't a witch after all.
No. The queen most certainly was a witch. And could well have been on her way to great evil. Who can say?
Then why did you save her then?
Because what she was not was a murderer.
I think that the journey into adulthood is slightly different than what we traditionally think of it as. We think of it as growing up and accomplishing things and, putting away childish things, which I think is a damaging phrase. But I tend to think that's not it. I think we step away from childhood the moment we realize that we are complex. The moment we realize we can hold contradictory ideas at the same time and somehow survive that tension. And this is exactly the idea that Monster's introducing to Conor here. People are in between. There is rarely extreme good or extreme bad. And so how do you live in that continuum? How do you live with that grayness? Absolutes and certainty are attractive. but they can be dangerous, and they can be very, very destructive if you don't watch them.
There are always two sides to a story. Now, how many of you knows the saying? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt you. Now, next time...
Schools were shot in the north of England, just east of Manchester. The bully again. Quite a nice kid, by the way. That actor is actually quite a really nice kid. He's acting. He's just acting. Don't blame him. You know, if you meet him in the street, say nice things. He's a nice kid.
Good. You're home.
In Siobhan's original material, in that opening chapter that she had in the book, she had Connor. She had a friend, Lily, who is in the book but not in the film, and I'll talk about that. She had the mother and the tree creature, who in her original material was more of a grandmotherly creature. And I felt that with what I felt was the underlying anger of the story, I felt like if Connor was going to call a monster, the monster would be an ambiguous figure, but probably male, because he might ostensibly at first think he's calling a father figure. Then perhaps he's calling a bit of himself, and then perhaps it is a creature, out of time and lore. It's heavily based on the Green Man, which is an English myth going back, millennia. And we work really hard, both I did in the book and we did on the film, to never 100% establish the reality of the monster. How much is dream-like and how much is actually happening. And I like that, because that's how life often feels. You get contradictory evidence.
Are you going back to hospital?
But from Siobhan's material, I added the police, and I added the dad, who we're introducing here, and I added the grandmother, and the sort of family dynamic of, Connor here is really isolated. And it's one of the reasons why Lily isn't in the film. We shot her as a really fine actress, also called Lily, by coincidence. Really, really good little actress. She did a good job for us. There's absolutely nothing to do with that. It's more, one, with the material of the movie, what it's like, and the impact that we hope that it has. It couldn't be 2 hours and 15 minutes. It really couldn't. You can only ask an audience so much. And plus a book you can put down and step away from, but a movie is a single experience, especially in a theater. And so you have to be reasonable with an audience. I believe that. But the other is that, unintentionally, Lily made Connor a bit safer than what was true. He's really suffering here, this character. And on screen, because Lily is such a vibrant presence, we didn't worry so much for Connor. And that's just not quite right for the story, because that's not how he feels. And so we ended up, in the edit, and editing is another form of writing, we ended up removing her storyline, which is, regretful. Like I said, a really good actress, and maybe there'll be an extra here somewhere where you can see. But it's right for the film. It's right for the film version of the story rather than the book, because Connor needs to be... He's got nowhere to go, except a bully. I mean, that's how tough things are. Except for Bully, who's the only person who treats him normally. Even though that normal behavior, the normal treatment is, abusive, the bully is still the only one who actually sees him as a normal kid. And if you're that desperate for someone to do that, you're going to go even where it hurts.
Don't touch him.
Don't touch him. It's such a punishable thing.
I said don't touch him. O'Malley and I have an understanding. I'm the only one who touches him. Isn't that right? Now tell me, why is it every time I turn around you're there looking at me? Getting a bit odd, don't you think? Sorry, that was a bit harsh.
Life's not really going your way today, is it? No, you never lost.
Yeah, that clock. Yeah, I mean, Sigourney tells people this, so I feel free to tell you as well, but we were talking about the character early on in the read-throughs and stuff, and I did tell her, and this is true, I did tell her that the grandmother is essentially me. I know that's not very complimentary to me, But you know, that kind of serious, I am not the least tightly wound person you might ever meet. And I can see myself in her so much, and I can see the fight to keep a normal life together, and the super clean house, and the sharp comments. You know, it's not 100% flattering, I confess, but she really embraced that. And it's like, the thing about Sigourney Weaver is that if you notice, if she has a trademark, it's kind of a head cock where she cocks her head to one side. And no one on earth ever cocks their head like Sigourney Weaver. It is just so full of meaning. Yeah, that was a real joy. So the grandmother is essentially me. But please have sympathy for me. I'm actually quite nice, please. Montage. Which actually write in a script, you know. You don't always, but, you know, when you want to get a few things across. And Conor exploring around the house. And ad-libbed, by the way. Find some cookies. She's hidden. Got a lot of wine in that fridge for an uptight lady.
Get in.
Yeah, this is just a kid. This is, I mean, look at him. I mean, he just wants to draw stuff. And this was one of Bayona's, one thing he really wanted to elicit from the book for the film was the idea of legacy, what we leave behind for our kids, and how we can connect to our parents and our grandparents. And he loved to draw as a kid, and so he suggested that, and that does a couple things. That's why I like the idea so much, is that the book is very internal. And for a film, you can't just have an hour and 48 minutes of internal talk. You've got to show what your characters are thinking, and drawing is a perfect way to do that. It doesn't, it's sort of a paradox in the way in that it doesn't release him. It should be the thing that actually releases his emotions. But I remember being little and writing, but I would keep my stories secret. You know, they weren't a liberation. They were just a way to describe a little world I felt I was in. And that's what his drawings are there. He's describing the world that he can't get past. The secret room. We will come back to this room. And so when Bayona suggested the idea of that Conor draw, I thought that's beautiful. And there's so many good ways to work it into the film. And there's so many ways to sort of plant seeds about where payoffs might come, and links that you'll see that I think come together really beautifully. It's a beautiful idea. And there's Dad, played by Toby Kebbell.
Dad.
Also a nice man. Yeah, I've gotten old enough, and I've done enough work that I got to the point in my life where I've always said I no longer want to work with assholes, even if they're super talented. I'd rather, the experience has to be a good one, because otherwise what's the point? Life is chaotic and messy, and you better find joy where you can, And so there's lots of opportunities to find joy, and one of them is working with joyous and likable people. And so everybody says this about their own cast. They're usually lying. I am not lying. These are genuinely lovely people who really, boy, they showed up and brought stuff, and were also a joy to be around. Because making movies is really hard, and it's sort of that weird, when you're on set, a set is sort of, extremely interesting and then really boring for hours, and then it's extremely interesting again. I mean, I'd watch a shot. We shot mostly in Barcelona, and mostly in an abandoned tuberculosis hospital in Barcelona. I swear it was haunted. And we'd do a shot, and then I would go for a 9-mile run, absolutely true, and I'd come back, and we'd just be on a different angle on the same shot. So it's fascinating and boring and fascinating and boring. So it's more work than you think it is. So you really want to work with good people, and there's a Spanish crew and mostly English actors, and that was, the combination is a really good one. I've heard I sit there while he does Spanish language interviews, like for Spanish language television, which we've done. And so they give me a translation, so I hear how he talks about me in Spanish, and he always calls me, in Spanish, he calls me the Anglo-Saxon. And he refers to himself as Mediterranean. And that tension between the Mediterranean and the Anglo-Saxon is kind of where this story happens. And it's a good tension. It's a really creative, fruitful one. Because of, how I feel about the world and how I approach emotional stuff is different than how he does. And finding a space that connects us is a really, I don't know, it comes a bit of a sweet spot where it never gets too much, but it never gets too little. And it works nicely between us.
Doesn't look like your grandma's house.
Toby does a tricky thing here, because he's got to play a guy who isn't necessarily bad, but who's just weak. And that's tough, and that's tough to do without vanity as well. This is a very handsome actor. He even says so on screen. You'll see, it's funny. But to be willing to not be the hero that Conor desperately wants him to be, that is not an easy thing to do on screen. He does a really nice job with that.
As I can be.
As does Lewis, playing off him.
You don't have a lot of.
You can see everything Conor wants him to be, and we can see everything that he isn't. And of course, Conor can see that too. He just doesn't want to admit it.
I'll come back whenever I need to, and you're going to come to LA for Christmas.
In your cramped house, so there's no room for me.
Conor.
I've got a whole backstory for his new wife. Yeah, it's not in the book or in the screenplay, but there's a whole backstory there. She sells crystals.
Conor, wait.
That's what I mean about the anger.
Conor.
Lewis can really do that as an actor. And this is coming up to the scene that I was talking about as the first idea from Siobhan's material. I genuinely believe it's the fulcrum of the book and of the movie. And this is the start of it. We rarely give children credit for their anger. We think it's bratty. We think it's indulgent or childish. And can you imagine? You don't even have to imagine. That's the thing. I never understood why so many people forget what it feels like to be a kid. And the tremendous sense of constant injustice. He knows what's going on here. He has a right to be angry. But we never really grant a child that right. And so how frustrating that is, and how it must spiral up. And it leads to regrettable behavior. Like this clock. This scene makes audiences really uncomfortable, which I think is hilarious. That makes me uncomfortable as well, because something is about to happen. The tension here. And it's a simple thing, and there it is. There it is. He's completely screwed. He's broken it, and there's nothing he can do about it. But as the monster says...
As destruction goes, that was remarkably pitiful. Now, I've come to tell you the second tale.
Is it as bad as the last one?
Yes, it is. It's just as messy.
If that's what you mean. It's about a man who thought only of himself. A man who wasn't as generous as he should have been. A man who gets punished very badly indeed.
Stories aren't real, though.
You might not be able to tell, but some of this is actually a mixture of CGI and practical, and that's something that I think really helps the reality of the monster, that parts of him are actually there, augmented by CGI. Sometimes obviously he's not there at all. But we did have a life-size head and a foot and hands, and it helped Lewis have something to act against, because it's so hard acting against green screen. It's hard acting to nothing. So the first 2 weeks, he actually acted with Liam, and so he knew what that experience was like. And so when it needed to be transferred to set for the further part of it, he had experience and essentially rehearsal of what needed to be done. And then we go into the second tale, which I described in the script as like an oil painting brought to life. And boy, did they really went to town on that.
150 years ago,
The future came.
factories grew
The bird waxed itself on a roof. Bonk.
rivers blackened.
If you notice, there's a quick railway, boom, that goes by. Yeah.
But they were still green, if you knew where to look. On the edge of this town,
That coat. Just the detail in the coat.
refused to change. He dealt in the old ways of medicine.
It's a very popular hipster beard now.
And concoctions brewed from berries and leaves. Villagers only ever called him the apothecary.
For what?
The apothecary, an old-fashioned name for pharmacist.
Oh. Why didn't you just say?
George the Dragon.
There was also a young parson in this village, an enlightened man, and a kind one who just wanted the very best for his congregation.
Parson is one of those words as a kid that I didn't quite understand, because I grew up in America, but I would read precociously. I think I was an annoying kid, but I would read above, I would find a book and I wouldn't understand half of it. But that's part of the thrill of reading. Oh, boss, wait, here you go. Only dog in the entire movie.
Much as he tried to keep on helping the community.
I would read, so I'd read a Bronte, and I wouldn't understand most of it, but that's where I first learned the word parson. And I always liked the word parson, just because it suggests parsimonious, even though I'm sure they have a different root. But there's just something pinched about the word parson. It has such a good flavor to it.
Its berries, its bark.
This, by the way, is 100% true. Everything the movie says about the yew tree is true. They do live for thousands of years. They are planted in graveyards because the berries are poisonous to livestock, so that's a long-standing tradition that they're buried in cemeteries. And they are still, to this day, used for cancer medication. And in fact, when Siobhan Dowd was writing, when she was undergoing treatment for her breast cancer, there was a controversy in England over a drug called Taxol, which was quite expensive. So the controversy was whether the National Health Service would provide it for people suffering with breast cancer. They eventually did, but Taxol is made from the yew tree. In fact, the yew tree's Latin name is Taxus. So everything that this movie says about the yew tree is true, and that comes from Siobhan's writing. It was her idea to make the monster from a yew tree, and it's a beautiful one. I saw one review where it talked about YEW being a synonym for YOU, and honest to God, that never occurred to me until I read the review. so that was never intentional. But the true stuff about the medicine and about the history, especially about the age, a tree that lives 1,000 years, that's an extraordinary thing. It's an extraordinary living thing, if you think about it. And it's all true.
Will you not help my daughters? The parson begged. Will you not save 2 innocent girls? Why should I? Said the apothecary. You have driven away my business with your preachings, and you have refused me the yew tree, my best source of healing. You may have the yew tree, said the parson. I will preach sermons.
This tie glows.
I will do anything if you would only save my daughters. You would give up everything you believed in, said the apothecary. If it would save them, I would give up everything. Then there is nothing I can do to help you.
Every slightly unsettling fairy tale in history should be read by Liam Neeson. Could you just listen to that forever? Listen to him talk. Harkens back to Connor's nightmare. And again, it's clear who's good and who's bad.
Today, both of the parson's daughters die.
What?
And that
Except-
night, I came walking.
Good. He deserves all the punishment he gets.
Indeed.
The monster's butt has proved very popular on social media.
Tore the parson's home from its very foundations.
Parson? What are you talking about? The apothecary's the evil one.
Is
He
he?
was greedy and rude, but he was still a healer. The parson will receive.
The very first day of filming this.
A man of faith without faith. Belief is half of all healing. Belief in the cure. Belief in the future that awaits.
I do believe that. I believe the things that the monster here says about healing. That belief is half of all healing.
You put it, and in whom.
That's not an unmixed blessing. I mean, hardly anything is, but that's not an unmixed blessing. The power of belief that you need. I mean, it's what his mother's doing. There's nothing I can condemn in the mother's behavior here. Nothing, well, why should we? Why should we condemn it? I hope that everything she does and the way she acts and the way that she doesn't tell Connor when he desperately wants to know, that's a loving action. She's not wrong. What do you do? That's the tragedy of it. How can you possibly... You can understand her decisions. How would you act otherwise? How would you do it as his mother? How wanting to believe in the cure, wanting to keep him hopeful. But the result, unfortunately, is this coiled anger. That's why it's tragic. Not because anybody's doing anything wrong, but because they're all trying to do the right thing, and they're all trying to do the loving thing. And it still doesn't quite work.
Come on.
And this is the scene. This is the scene that kicked off the entire book for me. Because we've all been him, haven't we? We've all been him doing this thing and knowing we've gone too far and the pleasure of going too far. Yeah. The laughter of the air of the monster. But then... silence here is important. I'm just going to let this play out.
Grandma. Grandma. Grandma, please.
It's a turning point of the film, a turning point of the whole story. He was able to express in the worst way possible what he's feeling, but it doesn't help him. I love the way they both played that. Love it. Almost wordless. Just, looks and pain, and it's the key scene. So I'm going to ruin it with a funny story, which is, this is what I meant about the persona of Sigourney Weaver. When they were talking about the scene, I heard, this is absolutely true, hand on heart, 100% true. I overheard the crew talking in English, mostly Spanish crew, but they were talking in English about that scene, about Sigourney pulling down the cabinet. And they were debating, would she need a rig? Obviously, she didn't need a rig. It was, she could easily do it. But they were talking about, would she need a rig to help her pull it down in the effective way, in the right way? And they were thinking, should we set something up? And then one of them finally said, do you think she can do it? And the other one said, and I kid you not, he said, of course she can do it. She killed the alien. That's the persona of Sigourney Weaver. And of course she could do it. Of course she did it.
Heard you like them sunny side up.
What are you doing here?
What do you think? Grandma called very early this morning. She's gone to the hospital to see your mum. Your mum's had a bad turn, Con.
I need to see her.
Look, we'll see.
That's heartbreaking, that.
Maybe you can visit for a little while this afternoon.
Nobody will tell Connor the whole truth that he already knows. And that's I think that's the tragedy here, the tragic paradox. He already knows what they're protecting him from. And that disjunction, what's killing him? Look at him, Look at the things that he has to do to deal with that terrible, terrible paradox.
Aren't you going to punish me?
What could possibly be the point in that?
Key question, aren't you going to punish me? Just, notice me, for God's sake.
I've got to say, champ, this is really just amazingly thorough.
That always gets the biggest laugh. Isn't it funny? You never know what's gonna work, but that line always gets the biggest laugh. I like that.
Oh, buried treasure. These must be those, the home movies your mum used to send to me when I first moved away.
Why did you move away?
We were young. Too young, we had big dreams and...
What kind of dreams?
Well, your mum wanted to go to art college.
Really?
Yeah.
And this is where Bayona's idea of legacy comes in. We talked about, Conor is an artist in this, and then he finds out how much commitment his mother had to it. But, life, as Dad said, is, most people get messily ever after.
Why did she marry
Plans
you?
change.
Because I'm handsome. Your mum was amazing, and she still is. And we were in love. I mean, I still love her, but you'll see that love isn't enough. It doesn't carry you.
Yeah, that's just the dad saying that, by the way. It's not the movie's point of view,
Happily ever after.
nor mine.
That's life, you know? Most of us just get messily ever after.
That, however, is. I think
It's all right.
I think humans are just, I think we're appealingly messy.
Even I'm happy to.
And as someone who, desperately wants who wants things to be neat and tidy, they just rarely ever are. And that, again, that tension is why I have to tell stories, I guess. That's why I have to make sense of the universe. And you pretty much are seeing what you think you're seeing there. It's just another little seed planted. And this beautiful picture of Sigourney. Yeah, and that willingness to avoid histrionics here. Again, that was a real aim of the book and the film. Is we've all seen versions of this story, and I long wanted to resist what I call pretty crying. A photogenic tear, gracefully dripping down a cheek, on someone beautiful. Because that's not what life is like, the crying needs to be ugly crying, or again, it's false to what Conor's actually going through. These are hard things, and I get asked a lot, particularly in the books that are for young people, and this one in particular about, talking about darkness in a story for young people. And the first thing I always say is, all you need to do is read the fiction that young people write. Read the stories they write for class, and they are much darker than anything I would ever be allowed to get away with ever to publish. And so young people are thinking about these things. They're thinking about death. They're thinking about taboos. They're thinking about pushing at their boundaries and finding, where are they weak and where can they be extended, and what does it feel like to step over a boundary. And I always feel that if you don't talk truthfully about the dark things that young people are already talking about, you're abandoning them to face it alone. And to me, that's the immoral choice. To avoid talking about it, well, that's the Conor problem is suffering from. But if you are willing to address the darkness honestly and truthfully, and in a way respectfully, because that's also important, then when you tell the truth about what's possible, about love, and that there is, a future. All of my books for young people are essentially about what do you do after the world ends, after the end of the world. The world is ending for Conor here, and the question is, what do you do after that? How do you live? So if you tell the truth about what's difficult, then when you say that hope is possible, and, a survival is possible, and more than just survival, but, possibility and potential, you are more believed because you haven't lied about what's dark.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always rebut that question about whether you should write about darkness for young people. Of course you should. Otherwise, you are leaving them alone in the wilderness. And how can that be? How can that be the right choice?
No, not that one. That one's our friend.
So Jurassic Park moment. Dum, dum. And this digital watch to me is a brilliant touch from the production designers, Eugenio Caballero and Pilar Revuelta, who both won Oscars for Pan's Labyrinth. But that digital watch tells such a story. You can guess that, you can guess where it came from. Is it his grandfather's? Is it, I think it's just moving, and he wears it. We never mention it, but he wears it. beautiful bit of how something even in production design could tell the story. This is the key image for Bayona and Eugenio when they designed the monster as well. There's an image in the book of the monster sitting on the edge of a roof, kind of like this. And Bayona always says that it reminds him of Goya. There's a Goya did a painting of a giant, and I would agree. I think they are similar, and it's a key image to how the proportion of the monster and the weight of it and his presence in Conor's physical actual life. There's a nightmare again.
That's not my truth. That's just a nightmare.
Nevertheless, this is what will happen after the third tale.
I want to know what's going to happen with my mom.
Waste the precious time that is given you.
Wait.
Bayona's a really interesting director to work with. I mean, he's extremely collaborative. I went to Barcelona for a dozen story meetings with him and the producer Belén Atienza, also an extremely clever and creative person. I like her very much. And we would just talk about what he wanted to do, what I wanted to do, what she thought about it all, and how it could be accomplished and how it could be put in the screenplay and how best to represent a visual. And writers don't often get that. You sometimes just hand it over to the director and off they go. But he was very, very collaborative, and it's more, arguing isn't right. It's more a discussion, because I believe that I do this with my books as well. They have to stand up to scrutiny. Otherwise, you'll never see the cracks in them. And they need to be strong. They'll be stronger for the scrutiny. So we would talk about everything and why to do stuff and why not to do stuff. And that's really very lucky for a writer to be that involved with it. I'm extremely grateful for that. And and I was there for much of the shooting as well. I went 12 or 13 times to Barcelona. And I was writing all the way to the end. That's the thing about screenwriting. If you want to be a screenwriter, it never quite ends. If I just finished a television series, and there's a saying in television that you never finish, you merely broadcast. And in a way, that's the same for film. I was writing all the way up to the final week of shooting. And, I even wrote some pickups, just because it's all, actors make choices, and you want to support. They make really good choices, and, the ones that you love, you want to support. And you discover stuff on set, so you do it a slightly different way. And so the writing never ceases. When you finally finish and people want to publish the screenplay or something, or like the movie edition of the book has the screenplay in it, and I was thinking, well, which one? I have so many, because it just grows as stories do. You keep the journey going because you keep wanting to find the right thing, and I think this hug is heartbreaking. There's that watch again. And it's one of the rare hugs in the film. It's not when I was writing the book, I had some rules because I really wanted to avoid cheap sentimentality. I never wanted it to feel cheap. This is Toby looking, he knows how weak he is here. He knows that he's not the man for this, and that's heartbreaking. Again, that's a tragedy. It's just a tragedy of humanity. But I had some rules when I was writing the book. Like, nobody in the book and nobody in the film says the words, I love you. I mean, hopefully it's filled with love. Hopefully there's love, at every corner. But I didn't want to rely on the cheap, something cheap like saying I love you. And you'll notice that nobody says cancer either. The word cancer is never spoken in the book or the film. And part of that is, that's the world Conor lives in. Everyone knows it's there, but nobody's actually saying it. And, again, that's his trap. He's told himself the wrong story, and nobody will allow him a way out of it except this monster. This is what the mother has found the home movies, and in an age where we film absolutely everything, it changes death a little, doesn't it? Does it make it easier or does it make it harder that we have so much footage of the ones we love? You would think easier, but is that actually the case? I mean, to see someone in a healthier, younger way, you might think immediately that is automatically a plus, and maybe it is, but again, there's no such thing as an unmixed blessing. And the pain here in their faces, another silent scene where neither of them say a word, and they're just watching this video of, Conor as a very young boy, toddler, brown. Yeah, it's a cute little kid, Spanish. Of course you'd want it. You would hold on to that memory like you wouldn't believe. But it doesn't mean it's not extremely painful. Love is hard, man. Love of a family, loving your daughter, loving your grandson, loving your mom.
If you get that, you'll be a proper artist.
And I love the way Bayona has so respected the silence. Not like, unlike me, how I'm talking over everything, but so respects the silence that's needed here. The music isn't pounding at you, and nobody's explaining how they feel. It's just their faces while they watch this memory.
Life. Maybe if we take a pencil and you can draw on there. Do you want to try it? Show me how you do it.
A glimpse of the mom's life. It's the thing. We're seeing this from Conor's point of view. So we have to have evidence here and there that, of course, these characters have lives of their own, but he just doesn't see them, you know? And it's the little box he's in.
Oh, look, there's his mouth. There's his mouth. He's very angry. Can you see? Look at that. And then we start.
There's a lovely bit of edit there. The tears over the rain over his face. I wanted to be a film editor. That was if I wasn't a writer, that's the one thing I wanted to do. It sounds really posh, but I actually come from a really poor background. I was the son of an army man in the U.S., and we never did anything. Nobody in my town or family did anything like write books or edit movies. But I always say that real writers don't write, they write anyway. So even if you think you'll never get a book published, you should write one anyway. You know, even if you're thinking you'll never get a movie made, you should write one anyway. Because you never know. It'll definitely never happen if you never write it. But yeah, the editors, Bernat and Jame, and a really lovely job and a really tough edit, this, because managing the tone of this is extremely difficult. I keep saying extremely, but it is very difficult. Getting it right and not making it too punishing, but keeping it honest. And, yeah. And it's just this little shot. It tells us so much.
Okay, it's a 30-minute exam this morning, and this is all the stuff we...
This is up to the third tale, and in the book and in the film, we had a lot of discussions because the tales arc, they're heading somewhere, and they do that in a number of ways, which was designed on purpose. For example, Conor is told the first tale, he steps into the second tale, he's the hero of the third tale, which we're about to see, so he's constantly moving closer and closer to the center of the tale, which allows him to tell the fourth tale, because he's, you know, it's his story. So he's slowly being drawn in for closer to the center so he can tell them. And the same thing needed to be done visually, which is why the first tale is more black and whites, and the second one is more oil painting, and this one is, you know, realistic, and the second one then can be the nightmare. We need to be going somewhere. As the stories, as Conor gets closer and closer to being able to say what he needs to say. This is a mean little thing. But what the bully does here, the discussion that he has here, I think this is the single evil action of the film. Aside from the prince, obviously, killing the farmer's daughter, but what the bully says here is the worst thing that he could possibly say to Conor.
But you know what? I'm not that guy anymore. Goodbye, O'Malley. I no longer see you. Now you're invisible to me, too. Hoping Mum gets better.
That was a bit of improv. That was a bit of nasty bit of improv. It was good at him. Well done. But I think that's the single evil action where he declines Conor his last bit of normality. And so, frankly, he deserves everything he gets. I can't possibly condone violence, except here.
What took you so long?
It is time for the third tale. There was once an invisible man who had grown tired of being unseen. It was not that he was actually invisible. It was just that people had become used to not seeing him.
Which is the story of every kid's life.
The invisible man couldn't stand it anymore. He kept wondering, if no one sees you, are you really there at all?
What did the invisible man do?
He called for a monster.
Goosebump moment. Good edit. It's Geraldine Chaplin. Indeed, the Geraldine Chaplin, granddaughter of Charlie. And she's a good luck charm for Bayona. She's been in all 3 of his films, and he always finds a role for her. And so she came in and did this in a day. God love her.
It wasn't me.
What was that?
It wasn't me.
Ah, I love how she looks in this. But I like that she's his good luck charm.
I'm not invisible!
If you want to be seen, O'Malley, this is not the best way.
I'm not invisible! Can you hear me? I'm not invisible!
Our school rules dictate immediate exclusion.
Let's hope.
How could I do that?
And then dashed.
Consider myself any kind of a teacher. Go back to class. We will talk about this one day.
Look at his face. A good little actor.
You're not punishing me.
What could possibly be the point?
Well, let me give you an example of emotional wellness.
Saw one glimpse of Lily as well.
How good it feels when you finally find the courage to say it.
That's her there. She's in other things as well. She's a really fine little actress. So. Components of wellness. Oh, the irony, huh? That look. We've all gotten that look in school. The dreaded look where you're the one. And so begins our final act. So these are all built sets, which is always remarkable to me. I'm amazed at how photorealistic these sets all look. And but like I said, it was all in an abandoned tuberculosis hospital about 40 minutes outside of Barcelona, which has been converted to film sets and used quite frequently. And as you'd imagine, it's an abandoned tuberculosis hospital, which where people went to die. And so there's lots of stories around it. There's lots of open balconies that a lot of people threw them off of, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so it's an amazing place, and it's not all movie studios. Some of it's just abandoned, and so it really does feel like a haunted place. And you could find lots of horror movies are shot there. And you could walk down, and there was this tub full of movie blood that nobody bothered to clean up. That was there the whole time we shot. Every once in a while, I'd just go visit the bathtub full of horror movie blood. I'm not making light here. I know this is a sad film, but and this is a very sad scene. Oh, the hope on his face. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Lately.
And this is it, where she has to tell him the truth.
Con. Look at me. I spoke to the doctor this morning.
And if what the bully said is the single evil action in the movie, I think this is the most loving.
New treatment, it's not...
Where she gives him permission to be angry. And that's what he needs.
Yeah. How can it not be working?
Things have just moved really fast.
I think it's one of the things that always surprised Bayona and the crew is when they met me, it's this heavily emotional material, book and screenplay.
What happens now?
Stuff I really, really feel, but then they'd meet me, and my family are Scandinavian, and we just have kind of a stone facade, and so I would always explain that stoic doesn't mean unemotional; it means privately emotional. It means we got them in there. We just keep them out of view. Doesn't mean they don't exist. And so for me, storytelling is a way to get all that out, not in terms of release, but just to engage with it, because I don't want to lose it. Release implies loss, but
Really is.
I kept pushing myself that if I wasn't made sorrowful or sad or even crying about the material, then I wasn't doing it right, because I think it's arrogance to ask a reader to experience something that you don't experience yourself, and the same, I think, is true in a filmmaker.
Connor, are you listening?
And so this scene, to me, this is the absolute truth from her, which is what he's really needed but was dreading to hear.
If you look back and you feel bad for being so angry, you couldn't even speak to me. You have to know that that was okay. That I knew know everything you need to tell me without you having to say it out loud. And if you need to break things, by God, you break them. Break them good and hard. And I'll be right there, Con. I wish I had 100 years. A 100 years I could give to you.
Yeah, I know it's sad. I know. But you gotta tell the truth, or it's... Even when you're 12, you gotta know what the truth is, or it can harm you. And she doesn't know it, but she's finally given him permission. Given him the ability to be able to do what he's about to do. He doesn't know yet either. And this is what needs to happen.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! They don't kill!
Real graveyard, real church.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! I need you now!
You'll do yourself harm if you keep that up.
Work! You said that you drew makeup better, but it didn't! Fix your makeup better!
Connor!
And this is what I meant about the performance of Lewis. The anger he can express. It's been coiled, and occasionally uncoiled, but, you know, this is really, he's at the end of his rope here.
I'm the one who needs healing! How many times do I have to tell you? My mum's the one who... Ah!
I think that scream is so honest. And this,
Help me.
you can finally ask. And so,
It is time for the fourth tale.
No, please get me out of it!
It is time for your nightmare.
I need to get back to my mom!
She is already here.
No! Mom, get out of here! All right, there's nothing to worry about! Mom, run! Please, run!
the church is a practical effect, it's not CGI. And that's why it looks so cool, I think. Practical effects, when you can do them right, are always the best, I think. And this, the Parsons Tale, was the very first day of shooting, and this was the very last. You'd never know in a million years, but this is the parking lot of the abandoned tuberculosis hospital. That's amazing. They're surrounded by equipment and cranes and crews and buildings. But it, digital magic, it looks like this. So we film all of this really, the most emotionally sort of big scene in the movie. And then we have the rap party. We go to a club in Barcelona called Razzmatazz, I remember. But yeah, funny old thing films, huh?
Here is your nightmare.
And again, what it is here with silence in the right place. And that, I think, is great. So much more effective than, showing it happening. The aftermath of it is punch in the gut.
This is when I wake up. This is when I always wake up.
The tale is not yet told.
Get me out of here!
The monster at his most monstrous.
He's no longer here, Connor.
She felt I couldn't hold on to her anymore!
Connor! Speak the truth.
No!
You must speak the truth, or you will never leave this place.
What truth? I don't know what you mean!
You must tell me the fourth tale of Conor O'Malley. You must tell me your nightmare before it is too late.
No!
Yeah. Tell me, Connor. Tell me the truth.
It'll kill me if I do!
It will kill you if you do not. Speak the truth.
No!
The truth, Conor O'Malley. Tell me the truth, boy. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. Speak the truth, boy.
I want it to be over!
There it is. The unspeakable.
I can't stand knowing that she'll go. I want it to be finished. I let her fall. I let her die.
And that to me is the most heartbreaking thing of all, the responsibility that a young child takes on themselves. If nobody will give them context and nobody will allow them to speak these fears, these very same ones, the ones that seem so forbidden, they'll take the responsibility. Because he would rather suffer than see her suffer, which is human, but you shouldn't have to do it when you're 12.
You finally said it.
And here's the moment of kindness from the monster,
Why didn't it kill me?
which is almost harder to take than the scare.
Deserve the worst.
Do you?
I've known forever that she wasn't going to make it. She kept telling me she was getting better all the time. Because that's what I wanted to hear. And I believed her. Except I didn't.
And that's the contradiction that makes us adults. He believes both.
I started to think how much I wanted it to be over.
And I love that Bayona plays this without music and just lets Conor Lewis do all the work. It's so beautiful and so gentle.
A part of you wished it would end, even if it meant losing her.
I let her go. Could have held on for longer. I always let her go.
And that is your truth, Conor O'Malley.
I don't want it to be there. Now it's for real. Now she's gonna die and it's my fault.
And that is not the truth at all. You were merely wishing for an end of pain, your own pain. It is the most human wish there is.
I didn't mean it, though.
You did. But you also did not.
How can both be true?
How can a prince be a murderer and be loved by his people? How can an apothecary be evil-tempered but right-thinking?
They give a lot of words to these actors.
Themselves more lonely by being seen.
I don't know.
That's the thing, there's such a difference between prose dialogue and
Because
screenplay dialogue.
beasts.
And it takes hearing it. It really does take hearing it. You know, I'd practice it, but I'm not an actor. And, you know, and then I would just trim and trim and trim and trim and trim and always making it shorter and shorter and purer, as close as I could get.
It is only important what you do.
And then you trust it to an actor to make it sing. And then, if you're lucky, they do.
That's all.
You think it's easy? You were willing to die rather than speak it.
And there's a monster in broad daylight. That's the most extraordinary thing.
So tired of
You know, that we see everything here, and it's still believable.
Are you sure? I need to see her.
Here's a nifty little shot as well.
See her tonight.
Will you be there?
Yes.
This
It'll
one.
be
This
the
one.
final step.
Where's the edit? Where is it? How does he do this? He still won't tell me.
How does the fourth story end?
Sleep.
It's in his hands. And somewhere, somehow, he's at the base of a tree. This was, I think, the final day of shooting in England. But this was one of those beautiful, beautiful accidents that we pull back, and then it's quite bright, but then the sun actually comes out. This is 100% natural, the sun coming out here. That actually happened. And those lovely, happy accidents you get on set are just poetry.
Thank God. Connor! Connor! I've been out of my mind trying to find you.
It was something that I had to do.
No time, we have to go now.
This sequence is it's the only time I ever saw Bayona get really mad. And it was, it's really funny. I like this. I like how Sigourney plays this as well. And Lewis, all the, because it is, you find humor everywhere. You find humor even in the darkest situations. And so the way they play it feels so true to me. But like I said, it's the only time I've seen it's the only time I saw Bayona get really angry, and he was at the rain machines. Because he thought they were so incompetent and they were so useless. English rain machines, he'd say. And so you kind of got to go with it. You kind of got to go a little suspension of disbelief that it's raining everywhere it should be. It really cost us no end of frustration.
It doesn't matter.
And amazingly, this is something I'd never seen before. This is shot inside a studio, and the lights you see are a special kind of projection that is done specifically for scenes shot in cars. And that there are these screens outside that project the images you need at the right angle and at the right speed, so it looks like they're driving through a place without the actors having to move them, so that you can have a camera where you need to have it. So a bit of movie magic I didn't even know existed. It's quite high tech, and even to the point of the lights of the passing train. I think it's amazing.
I know.
You do know, don't you? Of course you do. But there is one thing we have in common. Your mum.
Oh, he's so good here. Look at him.
That's what we have in common.
So one hug for his father that says goodbye, and one hug for his grandmother basically says, I know, and is a kind of hello. Because, they have a new life that they're being forced to start together very, very soon. Yeah, where is it raining exactly? A deep breath. But they know they have to go inside. Which is to me, almost the most tragic thing. He knows he has to face it, and he knows he must, and he knows that he can, but he just doesn't want to do it by himself. For me, the book is a 200-page extrapolation of one sentence, and it's a sentence later in this scene where he turns to the monster and he says, "You'll stay?" And that, to me, is the most heartbreaking question of all. He knows he has to do it. He knows there's no getting out of it. He just doesn't want to do it by himself, which is heartbreaking.
Here's the end of the tale.
I'm afraid.
Of course you are afraid. It will be hard. It will be more than hard. But you will make it through, Conor O'Malley.
You'll stay.
I will be right here.
That's the answer he wants. And so he can do it. Kids are amazing. Kids are amazing if we allow them to be.
What do I do?
Now all that is left is for you to speak the simplest truth of all.
And this is hard. These are the hardest sentences in the whole story. Because true.
I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go.
Here's where we realize what 1207 has meant throughout. Why the monster always comes at that moment. What does this moment mean? I love that I have been greeted with interpretations of it that have interpreted it completely differently. And I love that. I love that that's true, that you can decide for yourself. And what the monster says here is the very last line of the book.
Fourth story in.
It ends with the boy holding on tight to his mother, and by doing so, he can finally let her go.
But it can't be the last line of the film. Because as they say, a book is something you can put down, it's something you can take a break from. But a movie is a single experience, and so we talked a lot about how to end it and where to end it. And it could never, even in my earliest drafts, it could never end where the book ended. There always needed to be a little bit more. And Bayona and I and Bailin Etienza talked a lot about how to handle this final scene. And Bayona had an idea, which I thought was beautiful, and I thought, there's ways to plant this throughout the film, and so it can be revealed without, us guessing what's coming. And also, again, played out in almost complete silence. So that we have a moment to breathe.
I've been making it ready.
I always wanted the book, from the very beginning, to be sad but not bleak. Because I don't think it's bleak. I think there is... I think Conor is out there somewhere today, and I think he's doing okay. I think he's had his bumps from life like we all do. But I think he's out there doing okay. And it's because he was able to do these things. It's because he was finally able to speak the truth. And in this little moment here, when he goes into the room and sees the actual legacy, is another good reason. And the secret room that his grandmother's been making for him, Lewis wasn't allowed to see it until we filmed there. So these are all his original, true reactions for seeing. He literally had never seen this room before as he's being shot here. And when he looks at the notebook, it was very, very near the end of filming. I think maybe even the penultimate day. And everybody had been asked to write notes to some good pictures there, including Sigourney's Ghostbusters picture, I think. Everyone in the crew and the cast had been asked to write notes to Lewis. And I did as well, because he'd done such a good job. He's such the hero of this shoot and this film. Again, at 12 years old, doing an accent. And so we all wrote these notes, and pictures, and notes, and funny things, and moving things, just to say farewell and to thank you. You become a family for a short amount of time, and then you separate and go your separate ways. And so what he's seeing as he's acting here, he's seeing all the notes that we wrote him, and all the congratulations, the deserved congratulations for what he accomplished, which is a lovely idea. He's acting against them and so on. But of course, the actual notebook is filled with these things. Moby Dick, Incredible Shrinking Man, King Kong, of course. And listen for the dog. The dog tells you something changes. There's a dog. And again, I've been presented with thoroughly convinced but opposite interpretations of what this means. And I am very, very happy with that. Did she plant the stories for Conor? Did she tell them when he was a kid? Is that where they came from? Or was she told the stories? By someone else? And that's our movie. This is Patrick Ness. I'm the author of the book, from an idea by Siobhan Dowd, and the screenwriter for A Monster Calls. So, hope you liked it. And if any writers out there, best of luck. I didn't come from a place where anybody, turned out to be a writer to write movies like this, or even write books. So if I can do it, you absolutely can. And best of luck to you.
I wanna hand you my heart and let you carry the load. Nobody tells you anything you need to know. I need a friend, but a friend is so hard to find. I need an answer, but I'm always one step behind. Guess it takes time learning to fly. Do you ever feel like all you want is to go home? To kiss the earth, to weave a way through this storm. Some days I rage like a fire in the wilderness. Some days I only need the darkness and a place to rest. Oh, it takes time learning to fly. Tear up this town, blinking in the sunlight as the walls come down. This fire will burn, digging for a truth that just can't be found. Don't want your lessons in love, I wanna tear it all up. I need a friend, but a friend is so hard to find. I need an answer, but I'm always one step behind. Oh, it takes time